Alright, Lesson 4, Identifying Railway Car Loading Procedure. Lesson 1, Overview. The lesson description. The unit movement of officer, unit mobilization officer responsible for the correcting loading of his unit equipment onto the railway car. The lesson describes the loading procedure, policy, and rules of the open-top railway cars during the CONUS operation. Enabling learning of object. The enabling learning object for the lesson defines the requirements of loading open-top of the railway cars and CONUS. Give it the study of the environment of the materials provided with the subcourse for the text, the condition, the standards, in accordance with the subcategory or its materials provided in the other references cited below. The reference of these references developed in this lesson are Technical Manual 55601, Railway Car Loading Procedures, August 1977. The Technical Manual 55-2200-00112, Transportation Guidance and Application of Blocking, Bracing, Tie-Down Materials for the Railway Transportation. Lesson 1. Lesson content. The topics included in the lesson are 4.2, identifying the importance of loading the practice, 4.3, loading guidelines, 4.4, inspecting railway equipment, 4.5, loading factors, 4.6, using loaded weights and using idler car, 4.7, 4.8, loading and unloading equipment requirements, lesson 4.9, 4.9, summary, lesson 4.10, lesson 4, practice exercise, 4.11, the lesson practice exercise, answer key and feedback. 4.2, identifying the importance of loading the practice, the instruction, the unit movement, the officer is responsible for the corrective load unit, the equipment on the railway cars in order to connect with the smooth efficient load out. You must know the proper railway car loading procedure and policy. The procedure and the policy will minimize your efforts and are instrumentally in preventing cargo damage and preventing delay to ensuring safety. In preventing the cargo damage, the use of the proper railway car loading procedure, preventing the cargo damage if the unit equipped with the damage during the transit may not be usable, but your unit may arrival on thereon, and you must ensure that the proper blocking and bracing methods are used to prevent jarring and jolting of the equipment during the switching operation. Also, the damage does occur when the equipment was improperly loaded, but the military shipper would be liable to the cost. Preventing the delays, U.S. military positive the force project demands for the rapid deployment. Any delay could be costly to the lives of the credibility proper the railway car loading procedures. The system preventing delays, identifying those areas you need to be aware of the methods of avoiding them. The railways are also concerned with the delays between the timetable oriented opposition. The delays are also causing confusion and may be produced with a rippling effect implicating the entire railway service. Ensuring the safety of the unit. As the unit mobilization officer, you must ensure all the safety of personal loading and unloading of the railway cars following the standard care loading safety procedures, health and preventing disabling the fatal injuries, ensuring smooth railway loadout operation, properly security car loading, causing the equipment to fall off the railway car, damaging the property, injuring military and civilian yard personnel, estimating railway car requirements, the rule, policy, and procedure for the rail car loading, and is to also estimate the unit railway car requirements. The Department of the Army generally directs the maximum use of available loading space for the railway car so that the courier's transportation charges are minimized. 4.3, loading guidelines. Upon receipt of the introduction, upon receipt of the movement order, you may be required to order the railway cars your unit requires you now. You will discuss some of the general guidelines for ordering railway cars. User costs. When determining the railway requirements, you must also be familiar with the under user's cost. The railway cars should not be too large for the shipment, nor shall the small two cars they require for the large one with sufficient. When the planning of the railway cars, the order they use the percentage determining the requirement. 60% of the railway cars are 50 feet or larger. 35% of the railway car less than 50 feet, and 5% of specialized railway cars. Order specifications. When ordering railway cars, you must provide the specification to your ITO, the type of the size of equipment required, the location and time of the railway cars must be available, the loading, commodity, shipping away, oversized dimension, and in destination proposal route. Ordering difficulties using placing the railway car contact with the appropriate military traffic management command, MTMC area command, with if you are experiencing difficulties obtaining the quality and the quantity of the railway equipment is ordered. Load and handle policy, adoption of load and handle policy, routine procedure for the railway freight, military impediment or movements, MI movements for the not authorized for these reasons. Loading and holding policy continued. Under normal circumstances, there is enough time to permit the review of all agencies to provide the necessary scheduling to meet the required delivery day or RDD. Load and hold action ties up a large number of the railway cars with justification. After 24 hours free time allowance, demurrage changes per car as are applied with $20 per day on the first 4 days, $30 per day on the 5th and 6th day, $60 per day on the 7th and all subsequent days. Adverse public and carrier recreation results. Other competitive modes of transportation might be denied for the fair share of the traffic. The railway equipment is ordered to be before the definite traffic management analysis is made. 404, inspecting railway equipment. The railway on introduction to the railway yard and the ITO responsible for the ensure and proper loading of the procedures to follow to meet the requirements and to ensure that the equipment is transported with a timely, efficient manner. The two inspection must be performed preloaded out inspection, final load inspection. The Association of American Railroad rules. The Association of American Railroad loading rules apply to both railroad and the ITO, and the rules in state with the ITO can refuse to accept the railway car unsuitable for the load if he is shipping. The railway car can refuse to accept the improper loading shipment. The ITO must perform the preloaded inspection to ensure the railway car is suitable for loading. That once the ITO inspects and accepts the railway car, it has the responsibility to comply with the Association of American Railroad Corps rules for that car. Preloaded out inspection. When railroad cars arrive at the installation of the ITO, the representative of the area responsible for performing the preloaded inspection. The inspection determines the suitability of the railway cars before the cars are placed on the platform, ramps, the warehouse loading. When performing the preloaded inspection on the cars for the car, so you must have ensuring the doors fastening are operative in good condition, interior for cleaning the drive with the sound floor and tack. The cars are free with the refuse of the previous loading of the foreign materials such as oil, grease, acid, lime, cement, coal, dust, contaminating orders such as crest. So tight, the debris or orders may be damaged to the equipment, roof and sheathing, or sound and tight, and the walls are free of the nails. Preloading inspection. Continue to note that the nail finder to check if the nails of the walls, the nail finder with the nails in short pieces of wood no longer than to form a T. The use of the finder to scrape the walls, it will still strike protruding nails. While performing preloaded inspection of the flat car, you must ensure that the cars are free of the residual refuse the previous loading of the foreign materials such as the oil, grease, acid, limes, cement, coal, dust, and contamination orders such as creosote, debris, and orders may damage the equipment. Decks are free of the bolts and nails and blocking. Inspection responsibility. Although the responsibility of the performing the preloaded inspection belongs to the ITO, you should make the responsibility you discover the discrepancy problems with the railway cars immediately report to the ITO. You must accept the railway cars with the defective loading, defective wooden floors, and unserviceable chains. Once you accept the railway cars, it is up to you to load them in accordance with the AAR rules and regulations. Final inspection. Perform the final inspection after the loading your equipment on the railway cars. During the final inspection, you must ensure the unit loads is properly blocked, brace, and meet the loading specifications of the AAR. You must ensure that the load conforms guidance with the technical manual 2200-01 001 and 12, the section 6 of the AAR regulations, specifically during the final inspection, you must ensure the loads are evenly distributed. Even distribution characterized by placing half of the load over the weight of each of the truck as possible whenever the marked with load limits and pressure, properly secured blocking, bracing cables, chains, and other blocking, bracing, tie-down materials in accordance with the Association of American Railroads within the height and the width of the clearance of the railroad it will travel. 4.5. Loading factors. Introduction. You must know the basic factor of the railway car loading. Preparing the successful loading plan. There are key for railway car loading factors to ensure the efficiency of the loading operation. Cargo capacity, handbrake, wheel clearance, the load limits, Association of American Railroad design, height, width, dimensions, brake and transmission, rotating vehicle parts, car capacity. To plan a successful railway movement, you must know the capacity of the railway cars you may use. The shipping your equipment, the car's capacity, the restricted of the car's size, dimension, the load limits. All conduits railway free cars are load have the extension of the railway cars stenciled on their side. They are railway abbreviation stenciled on the railway car definition capacity railway abbreviation CAPY. This is the normal weight of the car, the expressed in pounds placed for the car in a specified tonnage group. The weight of the capacity of flat cars reached for the except the tractor vehicles. The load limit, the LD limit. Load limit indicates the maximum safe load weight on the railway car. Lightweight, LTWT, the actual weight of the empty car. The car size, the most common size of the box of the open-top cars that are used by the continental railway railroads. The box inside the diameter is 40 feet by 6 inches the width, and it's 45 feet by 40 feet and 6 inches length, width of 5/8 of an inch, width of 8 feet and 9 inches, height of 8 foot 7 inches. Car size continued. Box cars and dimensions 46 and 92 and 9 and 10, 46, 92 and 10 and 8, 50 feet and a half by 9 and 2 inches by 10 and 4 inches, 5 and a half, 50 feet and a half by width of 9 and 4 inches by height of 10 and 6 inches. Flat car standard dimensions are 40 foot by 9, width of 9.2, 48 feet and 6 and a half by width of 9 and 5 inches, 53 and a half feet with a width of 10 and a half feet, and 56 and 1 inch with 10 and a half foot width. The Association of American Railroads specifies the clearance of the handbrake of the wheel, the handbrake of the railway parking, the brake when the loaded railway car is provided with sufficient space around the brake wheel to enable the railway operation personnel to access it. Figure 4.1 shows handbrake wheel clearance showing the loading of the provision sufficient clearance of the handbrake wheel. There are AR specifications concerning the minimum clearance for the handbrake of the wheel. 6 inches back on both sides and above the brake of the wheel, 4 inches underneath the brake wheel, and 12 inches on the end of the car loaded, extended with the center brake of the wheels to the side of the car and 6 feet above the car floor. Handbrake wheel clearance continued. This shows the handbrake wheel continues 6 feet by 12 inches by 6 inches around by the 4 inches depth underneath. Loading factors continued. The load limit, LMT, the stenciled railway car indicates the maximum weight of the load you can place on the railway car. According to the Association of American Railroad, no circumstance with the load limit exceed if the load limit figure is not stenciled on the car. The capacity figure, which gives the tonnage class of the car, will be carefully confused with the load limit figure and with the lightweight limit figure of the car. The area association requires the load to be balanced on the car so that one side of the car does not carry more weight than the other. Distributed each of the car trunk carries no more than half of the load limit, protected with the tipping of the balance, placing of the large heavy items on the car floor, secured with the center of the gravity to its height, preventing the tipping during the transit. Figure 4.2 provides example of the maximum load weight guidance for the load limit of 104,000 pounds. Assuming the truck center end of the car, you can load 15,600 pounds at each end of the car. Alright, 75% or less than 18 feet, 18 feet and over, 100% maximum loading weight guidance. Well-hold car load limits. Well-hold depressed center of the flat car is one of the 2 flat cars designed specified by the Association of American Railroad rules. Because of the car loading deficiency between the truck center and the well-hold cargo, flat car reinforces the side of the center, resulting in the strong underframe and the ability to carry heavy loads. So the figure 4.3 shows the percentage of the allowable load weight for the well-hold and depressed flat car. The well-hold car is the load limit of 104,000 pounds, but the load is 15 feet long, and the weight of the limit load you can carry up to 75% of 104,000 pounds or 78,000 pounds. If the load is less than 18 feet, the 75% of the load limit, more than 18 feet, 100% of the load limit. Following figure 4.3 shows the 66% of the weight limit is 72,800 pounds. This shows 17,800 pounds in the center, with 15% off the center still of the truck centers at 15 and at 15,600 pounds, 15%. Percentage is allowable loaded of the weight on the well hole of the flat car. Continued. 4.5 loading factors. Standard flat cars. The flat cars have the percent allowable the weight load lower or then over the well hole cars. The figure 4 shows the standard flat car load limits 10 feet or less 66, 10 feet or 24 feet to 75, 24 feet the truck centers 90%, truck centers and over 100%. This shows 4.4 standard flat car load limits. Height and width limits. We may ensure the height and width of the railway car without overhanging within the clearance limits of the railroad you're using. You must verify the clearance limits of the entire railroad route prior to avoiding delays unsafe with the damage to the unit of the railway equipment. If your equipment exceeds the limitation of the railroad, identify and notify the ITO. The ITO will request an association with the carrier to obtain the routing, allowing your units to load to move. The higher load, the narrower it must be, the clearer the tunnels and overhead obstruction. The rule of thumb: when the load exceeds 15 feet 1 inch measured above the top of the rail, it exceeds the load limits. Any load overhanging the railway car considered outside. Special arrangements must be made to accommodate it. Brakes and transmission. When loading the vehicles on the railway cars, you must ensure the handbrakes are tightly set over the levers with wire tied and blocked. The transmissions must be in a neutral position. The lever will wire tied, placing the preventing the accidental starting with the vehicle. Rotating vehicle parts. When loading vehicles with rotating parts, ensure turret guns are locked. Vehicles or gun barrels are not equipped with a bullet and gun brackets are secured with 3/8 inch steel cable booms and pointed toward the rear. Crane booms are secured with dunnage and locked down with the cables. Booms and turrets are secured with the face of the trailing position. 4.6 Placing load limits. Introduction. Another requirement for which you must be familiar in guidance considering load limits and placement of the railway car. The total weight of the placement of the railway car is determined the load length, the type of the railway car, load limit. The rules of loading railway cars determine the placement of load rules. Rule 1: determine the weight of the cargo so that the railway car the proper capacity can be spotted for the landing compared with the cargo load weight with the cargo's load. Step 2. Rule number 2: load no more than 50% of the road limit on either the truck center with the cargo to verify its weight. 3. Do not exceed 15% of the load limit of the load cargo from the truck center to the end of the railway car. 4. Balance of the load transversal. If the load shape of the place with the weight on one side of the railway car or other, counterbalance the ballast achieved with the transverse balance. 5. Load large limit items have been greatly weight and large dimensions of the floor to prevent tipping. Rule 6. Ensure items of the highest center of gravity are well secured with preventing tipping during the transition. Center of gravity. When possible, you want to balance the load on the railway car, lining up the load of center of gravity with the center of the rail car. But what happens when you are loading a piece of equipment that cannot be balanced, such as the crane with the boom attached? To solve the problem, the Associated American Railroad established the rules for loading equipment that cannot be centered out of the length of less than the distance between the truck center. The figure 4 or 5 shows the location of the center of gravity of the different loads with the relationship of the ratio of the load weight to the load limit of the car. Figure 4 or 5 shows the load limit, weight placement from truck center 9%, 87% load limit, 75% load limit, 66% load limit, 9/20 to 3/17, 1/3, and 1/4 from the truck centers. That's from center of gravity. Computing center of gravity. Extremely important for the proper loading of the railway equipment. The extreme for the crane attached with the boom. Compute the center of gravity using the assumption that the crane weighs 75,924 pounds. Flat car with 50 feet with a load limit of 114,000 pounds. The distance between the truck is 40 feet. Truck center is 40 feet. The procedure computing the center of gravity for the train action determine the percentage of the railway code load limit versus the cargo load weight. The load limit weight is 75,924 pounds, but the load weight of 14,000 pounds is 0.666% or 2/3. Step 2: use the figure 4 or 5 to verify the center of gravity guidance for the correct position. Percentage of the load limit of the 66.6% falls in the center of the truck because of the position with the 1/4 of the distance for each of the truck. Multiply the distance position with each of the truck of 1/4 of the distance. Distance between the flat car and the truck centers is 40 feet. 1/4 of the times 40 is 10 feet. The product tells you the proper crane placement is no more than 10 feet from either the truck center of the figure 4/6 shows the crane center with the gravity to the proper placement of the railway car. 4/6 shows the center of the crane center of gravity with the train center of gravity and 10 feet from the truck center, 40 feet from the truck center to center, and 50 feet from the end sill to end sill. 4.7 Using an idler car. Using idler car's introduction. Using an idler car when the loaded protrudes beyond the end sill, carrying the car when necessary to space the two carrying cars for the loading loads. The user idler car when overhanging load protection loaded extra long space for the load. Two load bearings are required. The overhang over the hang of another railway car. Measure the overhang. Measure the overhang is not dependent on the distance, but the loading extended past the railway car. The distance of the load extended past the center point of the trucks. For example, the crane with a boom extending beyond one of the flat car may require the ideal car to protect the overhang of the idler car. No load limit. The rules of using idler car. There are user rules of the idler car figure 4.7 to maintain the 4-inch clearance between the overhang portion of the load and any part of the idler car below it. Rule 2: you may space the idler car or loading other material. However, the end of the material must be more than 2 feet away from the end of the overhang load. 3. The rendering of the uncoupling mechanism underneath the load inoperative must be do not disconnect them. 4. Probably block and brace them in boom position. Rules for idlers continued. Adhere to the Association of American Railroad general rule of length and width of the allowable overhang. The Association of American Railroad bases the rules on the length of the flat car using the idler cars as the length of the overhang. Increase the width of the allowable overhang. Decrease the flat car 46 feet long and the length is loaded with is 50 feet with the length allowable. The length of overhang and the length is 11 feet with the overhang is 8 feet 8 inches. 60 feet the flat car with the 40 feet flat 40 foot if the flat car is 46 feet long and the length of the load is 60 feet. The length of the overhang is 21 feet with the overhang of 7 feet. 4.7 shows the idler cars with the blocking, bracing boom in position for minimum inches, the uncoupling mechanism, and made inoperative in the minimum of 24 inches clearance. All right, using fastening overhangs. Do not fasten overhangs idler car. As you have seen above the table, the length of the overhang increase is allowable to decrease. The Association of American Railroads established rules because the train turns and bends during the curve of the rail with the carry to the weight of the non-idler cars shown in Figure 4.8. If the load were too wide, it would protrude from the side of the idler car with the potential of striking nearly object if it and when the car negotiated the curve possibly damaged the equipment and causing accidents. 4.8 shows the overhang turning with the idler car. Alright, 4A Introduction. Loading and unloading equipment requirements. You must be familiar with equipment required for the loading and unloading equipment, cargo, and onto and from the railway car. Normally, the equipment is available to the railway loading and unloading site. However, there is not. You must include the equipment with you plan and you move. There are three types of loading and unloading equipment: ramps, spanners, and cranes. Ramps facilitate movement of equipment, vehicles, and other types of wheels, equipment onto and off the flat cars. Ramps provide means of delivering the vehicle directly on the flat car into the desired position when the time of the unloading occurs. With the vehicle is sampled, the ramp is unloading, and the personnel for the ramps are available. Unloading follow the procedure with the last railway car and an expedition ramp. Step 1. Detach the end of the truck from the flat car body by removing the cotter pin from the rod brake pin. 2. Lower the body on the supporting wooden block until the coupler of the pocket rests on the block. 3. Block the side of the flat car rail with the leveled and place the additional block timbers from the runway. Caution: when using another flat car as a ramp, be careful not to damage the coupler mechanism. If the car is a commercial car, you consult with the servicing railway company prior to performing the procedure. 4.8. Loading and unloading equipment requirements. Continued spanners. Per Figure 4.9, spanners of the boards, bridges, and the distance between the railway cars, creating one continuous road bed of the train. The spanners facilitate the circuit method of the loading railway cars. The circuit method is quicker. This is the most common way of loading vehicles. Figure 4.9 shows how the spanners facilitate the railway car loading. When using the circuit method loading vehicles, the vehicle is driven up the ramp onto the railway rear car. The method of forward across the spanners unit reaches the appropriate location. Any spanner that even with the accommodate the tank's heaviest equipment of the Army. The Figure 4.1 shows the various configuration spanners. Shows the spanner 7x4 foot with a 60 by 60 inches by 12 inches, 7 by 4 inches. Then you have a 120 spanner, which is 7 by 4 inch, 96 inches to 12 inches. 4.10 shows the circuit method of loading vehicles with the spanners and the ramp. 4.8 loading and unloading equipment with continued spanners and continued capacity of 62,000 pounds, 17,000 pounds, and a floor of the flat car. Angle irons prevent the spanners from slipping during the use. Using the angle iron wedged in between the spanner boards of the flat car being loaded. You must ensure the angle iron is placed in the same direction as the forward movement of the vehicle being loaded. Using spanners with 33-degree angle over the equipment. Vehicles must be equipped. They should be aware of improperly blocked spanners. The boards can move during use. These are procedures to overcome these problems with using the spanner boards. Alright, using spanners. Step 1, engage the brake wheels of each of the railway car. 2, reduce the 33-degree angled position in 2x4 by 2x6 foot by 2x8 foot piece of the wood in front of the spanner board to stop each of the vehicle prior to the movement over the spanner board that has been processed and using the vehicle's lowest gear. 4, block spanners using angle irons. Ensure that there is 1 foot overhang in the spanner on each railway car. Cranes frequently used for loading car which cannot be reached or other equipment is to be bulky and heavy to move. Otherwise, if the unit requires the cranes to perform the railway car unloading operation, notify the ITO. Plans can be made with the crane and be positioned at unloading sites. Lesson 4.9, Lesson Summary. Lesson covered the procedure guidelines for the conducting preloaded, outload, and final inspections to ensure the operational of the equipment and material addressed for the basic loading factor, including the car capabilities, maintaining handbrakes, wheel clearance, load limits with the maximum load which can be placed on the railway car. The load is within its position by appropriate for the railway car, maintaining the appropriate center of the balance. Idler cars which serve to protect overhangs of the axle spaces between two loading bearing cars when the loading is extra long. The Association of American Railroads established the permitted length and width of overhang based on the length of the car used in the idler cars. Spanners which are used in the bridge distance between the railway cars. Using spanners you can make a train a continuous road bed. This shows the lesson practice exercises. And then there Lesson 5, computing railway car requirements.